Welcome to JoyTalk Radio.
Welcome to JoyTalk Radio.
Welcome to JoyTalk Radio,
where we come together to change the world
by challenging ourselves,
our beliefs,
and our systems
to get better results for generations to come.
My name is Joy Gilfilen with JoyTalk Radio. This subject is about the Blindspots, the unexpected findings from jail trauma research that I did after interviewing 79 people in Whatcom County who have either gone through the jail system themselves as an inmate or who were family members, friends, colleagues, loved ones, bosses. The 79 people that I interviewed were all voluntary. They wanted to help me understand the bigger picture of what happens to people who go into the jail and justice system. What is its impact on the family? What was its impact on them? And the story that I asked of them was to help me map out what happened to them wherever they wanted to start. I did not intend to come up with a study per se. I was just interviewing people to ask them what actually happened. What happened that happened, what happened after things happened that put them into the system, and I just let them talk. And some of these people I spent 3 hours with, some of them 5 or 6. A couple of people I talked to several times. Each one of them was not here to complain about the system per se. They were here to try to help us fix the system. And the reason they were talking to me in the first place is that I was president of the Restorative Community Coalition at the time. I spent 9 years as president of the coalition trying to understand what was the matter with our jail and justice system. And why was it that our county authorities continued to try to push the growth of the jail industry, tried to expand our small jail from a several hundred bed jail to upwards to 800 or 2,400 bed facility in a county that only has a couple 100,000 population? Why were they so determined to spend tens of millions of dollars to build land, to build this huge facility when we only had 200,000 people here in the first place? So over the past 9 years, I started out looking at what is the jail and justice system? What does an arrest mean? What is it anyway? I have for the last 30 years always voted to support our judges, always voted to support our prosecutor, always voted to support the police and anybody else related to it, because 30 years ago, actually more than that, back in the 70s, I had a girlfriend who had been murdered by the Hillside Strangler. The current prosecutor that was in office as we were running these initiatives to stop the jail growth was the same prosecutor who had prosecuted the man who killed my friend. And he got a conviction with the Hillside Strangler. And I just believed in him. And for the next 30 years, I just voted. 40 years. It was actually 40 years. I just voted in favor. And it never occurred to me to question the industry. It never occurred to me to question anything about it until I realized one day that the jail industrial complex, the law and justice system, was costing us 65 to 70% of our Whatcom County budget was being spent on the law and justice system. And that seemed preposterous because back in the 80s, our justice system was at 55%. So over the course of the last 9 years, I and many other people in the Restorative Community Coalition, which is the sponsor of this lecture, we did a lot of research into what was going on in the jail industrial complex. We testified at committee hearings. We helped educate the public about why we should be voting against a jail tax. We've had over 100 college students work with us, do research on what's going on in the system and what does this language mean and what does that language mean and what's happening with the prison industrial complex, all this background. And no matter how we talked about it, no one inside the system, the Incarceration Prevention Reduction Task Force, the judges, the people we talked to, the Vera Institute of Justice, which did a study for the county on what's the matter with the justice system, none of these people wanted to actually talk to the people who were our clients, who were the people we were helping at the Restorative Community Coalition. We also couldn't get any really good funding anywhere. And at one point, when I realized that the county authorities didn't want to talk to them, even though the Vera Institute of Justice said there's no way you should be recommending how to fix the system if you don't talk to the clients of the system, the people who are going through the system, They put it on the recommendation to the county council. They put on the recommendation to the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force, which was a group of citizens who are judges, prosecutors, sheriff's department people, nonprofit groups, mental health groups, addiction groups, mayors, city council, county council. They still didn't want to do the interviews. And I went, you know what? I need to do them. So I sat down and I interviewed these 79 people. What I want to say is that this 79-person study is not a perfect double-blind, placebo-controlled, all that kind of study. The study and the results that I came up with were after I did the 79 interviews and I realized what I had unearthed and what happened to these people. I mapped it out on charts using a mapping sequence process that the very Institute of Justice, together with the Incarceration Task Force, had created on a wall. It's like a typical sequence map. But in the sequence map, it was all about what happens inside the justice system from the justice authorities' perspective, from the point of an arrest, and how do you go to first appearance, and when does the public defender come aboard, and what happens after first appearance, and what happens at arraignment, what happens with bail, what happens with all these things. Everything on this map was about what happened after an arrest. But I used that map to help me understand what happened to people, because the problem that I've always had in talking to people who get arrested is that they're traumatized. They can't talk. They can't tell a good story. They can't tell you what happened and in what order it happened. They're upset and they have emotional triggers, and they'll start to tell you one story and they'll get it confused with a different story. So I did not feel until this particular time after I had that map that I had the capacity to be able to listen to them long enough to figure out what happened. So I used the map as a backdrop and I just started talking to people. I had 53 people who had gone through the justice system in Whatcom County, through the Whatcom County jail system. I had 26 people who were employers, public defenders, criminal justice attorneys, the head of an emergency room nurse. I had parents, I had students, I had people from the ages of 18 up to 70. They were male and they were female. They were all ethnic backgrounds, from Native American to Asian to Caucasian to Russian, people who were immigrants to the community. I had multimillionaires. I interviewed several multimillionaires who had been actually arrested and went through the system, who had family members who had gone into the system. Veterans, people who were homeless, either before or after their arrest. It was a wide array of people. I also talked to medical professionals who had either been mental health professionals or were chiropractors or medical doctors who had worked with people who had brain damage, various kinds of brain damage. They had, one of the people talked about having broken brain syndrome and the split brain condition that they were working to actually heal in people by doing chiropractic adjustments, nutritional therapies, various kinds of modalities that can help people heal from having this split brain problem. So those are the people who I interviewed. And over the course of time, I created a pattern to interview them that I used. And the basic pattern was, what happened to you? What happened that happened? How much did it cost you? Where did things go wrong? How could you fix it? How did you, what did you know? Where did you get lost in the system? And did anybody help you? And how long did it take you to get through the system? It's from that kind of interview, it was very open-ended interviews, that eventually I compiled my results.
Thank you for joining us on Joy Talk Radio.